For the last week or so, I've been sinking my teeth into ArenaNet's free-to-play MMORPG Guild Wars 2. While I credit games like RuneScape, EVE Online, Fractured Space, and even Webkins as some of the first MMOs I can remember playing, I've pretty much stuck to this game and played it consistently as opposed to playing the above games for only a few minutes. So far, my experience has been very positive, for reasons you'll find out here in a second. I have a ton of reasons why I love this game. I'm not going to end the episode early in saying this, but this game is the closest thing I've ever played to World of Warcraft. Ironic considering I've never actually played it. For starters, the game is free, and despite the lack of a price tag, it doesn't have as many hackers, if any, as you might think, considering the style of game. I love the open-world approach to completing objectives and quests, exploration, and how it fits into your character's personal story. There is a bit of a caveat to that, which I'll mention later. Speaking of which, one of the coolest things about this game is that upon creating a character, you can choose your character's backstory, its class, its appearance, and I think even to an extent what abilities you have access to. One advantage this game has over World of Warcraft is the simplified UI. Watching high-level players play Warcraft makes your screen look like a Piet Mondrian painting made with Rubik's Cubes. Instead of having to mash keys on your keyboard to cast spells and use abilities, everything is simple and concise and is limited to only 10 keys. The inventory, bank, and other contextual menus are also easy to open and use. The waypoint system is really cool, as if you die or want to teleport somewhere to complete a task, for a small fee you can teleport to most locations in the region that you've discovered unlocked. You'll need to unlock one, if you haven't done so already, by walking to it. Once you do, it becomes so easy to travel. Compared to games like RuneScape or EVE Online, this game does have a pretty high skill ceiling, but not enough to turn the bravest of players away. Many questions regarding skills like crafting or armor smithing can be solved in just a click. One of the most fun things to do in the game is group up with other players to take down the Sons of Svenir or giant monsters, which will usually give players really lucky and valuable loot. Lastly, this game doesn't require you to install anything, meaning that you can put this game on a flash drive, although I'd recommend a 64GB flash drive because the game is huge. More on that later. There are a couple of things I didn't understand but can tolerate to some extent. As I mentioned earlier, your personal story will constantly require you to fulfill the next page or chapter, which has a completely different method of grinding to the game. I didn't like this at first because the game is practically limitless, but later on when you reach level 30, your personal story is in fact affected by what choices you make. Some of the quests I've gone on or tasks I've completed have confusing and misleading goals about what you're supposed to do. At times the game will make the quest or task rage-inducing. Some objectives are tough because of their time sensitivity, as in collecting armor scraps in a place as barren as Antarctica, and some require you to capture animals that run away as soon as you throw a net in their general direction. However, some of these tasks allow you to come back to them later, which is pretty nice. One thing I was going to mention earlier is the size of this game. Compared to most MMOs that take up anywhere from a few megabytes to about 10 gigs, this game is a whopping 30 gigabytes. As one Redditor that commented on one of my posts put it, it's quote-unquote just a very generous trial, end quote. While I was going to complain about microtransactions being in a free-to-play game, most of the content you can purchase is either cosmetic or as part of your character's QOL or quality of life. One Redditor said, "You can play the game and are not held back one iota in power or progression if you don't spend a single cent." I'd say that's pretty accurate. I was originally frustrated at having to download regions of the map, but later realized there's a lot more of the game than what's on my drive, and I was so impatient to play I clicked ready as soon as I could. If you're an inexperienced player trying to start a guild with your friends or trying to join one, it's expensive, but it's much easier to ask a higher level player for help. Overall, Guild Wars 2 is by far my favorite MMORPG I've ever played. I love the lack of a price tag, the open world approach, and the waypoint system. The personal story part is cool, but it's a bit unnecessary until you get later on in the game. While it is pretty large, there's endless replayability at your fingertips. While some of the game is pay to play and limited by what kind of account you have, it's not obtrusive enough to make the game unplayable. Overall, I would highly recommend this game to anyone new to MMORPGs, or someone looking for a free or cheap online role-playing game like Skyrim or Fallout. Despite the game being over 5 years old, the fan base is still alive and kicking. Before I close out the episode, I want to leave you all with some closing thoughts. First, while interacting with the community and asking for feedback for this review, one of the biggest points people made was that, as a level 16 player, I'm vastly inexperienced and still have a ton to do, learn, and explore. While I do take my naivety towards the MMORPG genre and lack of playtime into account, one thing I stressed was that this review is my first impression of the game as a new player, and that over time, as I gain more experience, I'll have a greater understanding and appreciation for this game. In addition, while it's understandable that the community doesn't necessarily take kindly to newer players flooding the subreddit, as I said, it's my first impression as a new player, someone who has roughly 10 to 20 hours under his belt. It's puny compared to people who have been playing this game since it was released, but I'm still learning, something that I feel is important. Second, several people commented on my comparisons of this game to other MMORPGs, and that I was almost making this out to be a Warcraft clone. Again, coming from someone who hasn't played World of Warcraft and only knows of the game through Let's Plays on YouTube and Twitch and Reputation. I was almost surprised to find that it seems to be turning into this game. That's beside the point. What I was implying was that due to the similarities in terms of gameplay, progression methods, and casual elements, I said that this game is one of the closest games to Warcraft that I've ever played. I still have a lot to learn from this game, and I'm enthusiastic to continue.